Hi everyone, I'm Justine Cerebrin and welcome to the Rainbow Activation Code. Today I'm here with Harmony, Divine Harmony. You can check out her work at divineharmony.com. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my honor. I want to first dive into talking about your daily practice. You're an amazing astrologer and give so much to the world on a regular basis and are constantly writing and channeling, and you're a busy mom. How do you do it? What does your day look like?
Oh, yes. So, you know, we were kind of talking a little bit before we started this, and I was joking about like my life pre-motherhood and my life post-motherhood. Pre-motherhood, like wake up, meditate for an hour, do an hour of yoga, journal, like kind of bask in the cosmic. And, these days it's more like wake up, make lunch, make breakfast, get, my daughter to school, then come back and boom, I'm like, ready to write. So, what I really do is I try and weave things into the day that are going to be nourishing for me. When I've had enough sleep, I'll wake up early so I can be alone at my altar by myself before everybody's awake. I love that time, when it's still dark out and everyone's asleep. It's such a rich time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen because sometimes I'm really tired and I sleep in. I make sure to hike or to do some kind of movement. I feel a huge difference when I don't do that.
Do you do that daily?
Lately I've been really trying to. We were having like nicer weather, and here in Topanga where I live, we had rain, and so like there's all these beautiful wildflowers. It's when I'm walking out there, I just like I see all the color and the green of the grasses and the flowers, and I just like breathe it into my heart chakra. Like it definitely amps me up. And so I've been trying to do it every day. There's definitely been times where I haven't exercised for months because I've been so busy working. I'm really learning how to find a better balance. I can tend towards being a workaholic, and I love what I do. And so when you love what you do, you don't just see it as work, and then sometimes you can find yourself doing too much and not having a balance.
Yeah.
That's been really important for me to work on. Like maybe a month ago, I met a girlfriend for tea at the local tea place, and we sat and we chatted for 3 hours, and we left, and I was like, oh my God, when's the last time I've done that? Like just done something for fun for no reason that had no practical application. Like I need to work on that more. So I have actively been doing that. For me, diet is so important. Like I eat very cleanly. I'm mostly vegan. Occasionally I'll have eggs just so I can have a little protein, but I do a lot of juicing and smoothies and salads and lots of fruit and veggies. And I feel a difference in my body when I eat in the way that is in alignment with what my body needs. And also just, like when I was saying I hiked and I saw the colors of the flowers and the grass, I get that same hit from fruits and vegetables. So when I eat the rainbow,
Yes.
That makes a huge difference. I listen to my body. I'm an introvert, so I need a lot of alone time. And, as a mother with an active child, alone time's not usually something you get a lot of. And so I just make sure, that I wake up early to have alone time, or I stay up a little after she goes to bed. And just, make sure that I'm nourishing myself. That's really important. Astrologically, for those who are into astrology, like writing comes naturally for me, and so does speaking and teaching. So I don't usually need a lot of preparation for that. I can just go into it. And that's like a gifted part of my chart, and it's part of why I do what I do.
Yeah.
So I don't need a lot to get myself into a space that's ready to write. Like it just sort of, all I need is to get in front of my computer, and then the channel usually opens.
That
Knock
is
on
so,
wood.
that's so cool. I never actually really thought about it in that way, that um, if you can really tap into what is your calling and what is astrologically for you, you're not going to be swimming upstream, but with the flow and alignment of your purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, and that's the case for anybody in whatever it is that is their natural flow, that's their passion, that they're fully engaged with. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Can you tell us about when you got into astrology, what your maybe spiritual awakening was like?
Oh yeah. Well, when you think about spiritual awakening, at least for me, I can see kind of like moments that build on each other. Like I have moments from when I was young where clearly something was going on. But then, later on, they say that, usually you come in more, awake, and then we sort of go to sleep, and then at some point we awake again. And for me, definitely in my early 20s, I started getting into yoga, and it started opening up my third eye, my intuition. I mean, it was kind of a little freaky at first because I didn't know what was happening to me. And then I went to India for 6 months, and that was, I think probably that was my first really profound spiritual awakening. I mean, it was life altering going to India for 6 months. And then I came back to the States, and I had, I guess, a period of integration. And then years later, I left a relationship that wasn't right, and I came back to LA. And then I went on a pilgrimage with some friends. We did like a walkabout where we went to Sedona and the Four Corners and Anasazi places. And we did like all this kind of Native American spiritual journeys. And that was quite profound. I spent a whole summer up at Mount Shasta also, I think, that year, and had really profound things happen. So it's like these things that sort of build, on each other. In terms of where I'm at today, a big part of my spirituality has been my priestess training. I've done a 3-year program with my high priestess, and then my shadow work training. I study with my teacher, Robert Masters, in shadow work, and those are 2 very integral parts of my spiritual path. Actually, one other one is Egypt. I have a very deep soul connection to Egypt. In the last 2 years I've been there. Visiting, studying with a woman who teaches the Egyptian mysteries. And then actually this October, I'm co-leading a group to Egypt for a sisterhood journey. So the Egypt tradition is also so these are kind of, the threads of my spiritual journey right now, but it's constantly evolving and unfolding and, taking me to new places. In terms of astrology, I was raised born again Christian. So I did not know anything about astrology until I went to college. And I think I was reading some, like probably Cosmopolitan, I don't even know, some magazine that I was never allowed to read because I was in a very strict Christian. And they had horoscopes, and I read them, and I was like, what is this? And it resonated, like, to the point where I was like, how did they do that? And so then I just started reading, and then my friends started picking up on it, and they would buy me astrology books for my birthday. And like, it's just like people started feeling astrology in me and would gift me astrology stuff. And I studied it for probably a good 10 years. And then it's kind of a long story, but the short version is my friend built a spiritual website, and he's like, why don't you write horoscopes? And I was like, well, I don't quite know how to do that. I just interned with an astrologer for the summer, and he taught me how to write a horoscope. He's like, well, you just learned. And I was like, yeah, but it's very different than actually knowing what you're doing. And he's like, no, you can do it. So I started writing horoscopes. And at the very start of that, I probably had 10 people reading my horoscopes because it was my family and friends. By the end of the year, I had like 5,000 people reading them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, when I studied astrology, people would ask me, they could see how passionate I was about it. And they're like, oh, you want to be an astrologer? And I would say, no, I will never be an astrologer. I love astrology. I study it for myself, but I'm never going to do it professionally.
I love that.
I have
That's
no
so
idea why I
funny.
was so like adamant that I would not do that, but here I am. And yeah, so then, you know, I wrote the horoscopes. The next thing you know, people are asking for readings, and it just like, it, I was a reluctant astrologer, let's put it that way. The universe kept having to like push me out there.
That's so funny. That's how tattooing was for me and having my own studio. I remember saying, I'm never going to have my own tattoo shop. Never. And
See,
I did.
I almost feel like when you say that, it is like a challenge to the universe, and they're gonna.
Yes.
So pay attention to whatever you say you're never gonna do, because
Yeah.
you're probably gonna find yourself doing it.
I know. My mom always said, never say never.
Yeah, no, it's true.
That's so funny. So, I might be jumping around a little bit, but when you said the priestess school, I'm really interested in that. And does that connect to the goddess work that you do now, or that you're passionate about?
Yeah, so some point, I'm trying to remember when it was. I think it was, actually, you know, sometime in my 20s. I remember it was the first time I heard about the concept, you know, of the goddess. And I remember going, what? You know, because I was raised in a very like Father God, you know, Father God, Son, and Holy Spirit, which was never conceived of as feminine. It was, you know, a dove, which is obviously kind of a feminine symbol when you think about it archetypally, but nobody ever talked about a female goddess. And so when I first heard about the goddess, it was almost like all these light bulbs went on. It was like, of course, you know, it was just like, all of a sudden it made so much sense and made me realize how that's been missing this whole time, and how did I not notice it. And so, you know, I had my journey with the goddess from whenever that began. It was in my 20s. And then at some point the priestess archetype started coming in very strongly, and I was just like, okay, you know, I felt like I wanted to do some kind of studies or training, and I was doing research at the time. This was kind of, when was this? Like 2012, actually. When Neptune moved into Pisces, and we had the first new moon in Pisces conjunct Neptune, I dedicated my life to the goddess. And then a year later, I found this program. So I was doing, you know, research, and I was finding programs, and I mean, everybody has the program that's right for them, but some of them were like, it seemed like people who just heard of the goddess, or, you know, or like for me, it was like, when I heard goddess, it was this deep remembrance of like, oh yes, it's her, you know, capital H, her. So I found Awakening Avalon, and my dear sister, Holly Hamilton, she's the one that runs Awakening Avalon. And it was just resonant. Like, she's a deep sister. She's very, there's one-on-one support. You know, it's not like a big priestess training where there's 100 of you and, you know, none of you get like deep connection with the teacher. And she's like a dear sister now. We've done teachings together. We did dark moon medicine teachings, and I love her. She's one of my closest sisters. But her program was amazing, and it was pivotal for me. Because I was actually going through my progressed dark moon. You can, you know, there's a new moon and a full moon and a dark moon, and we do go through the lunar cycle in our progress chart. And it's different for everybody when it is. So anyhow, I just happened to start my dark moon when I met her, and my whole priestess studies were me going through the dark moon, which is very occult. Like, the dark moon is magical and mystical, and it's about diving into the deep, and it's about endings and releasing of old cycles, but it's super psychic and super mystical. And I found her and started the training with her like right when I entered into my dark moon. And It was a 3-year program, so it's like 3 years spirals, 3 spirals, and it's been a big part of my growth these last years. Deepening into myself, trusting my intuition. I'm very intuitive, and that comes through with my work. Like, I'm easy. It's good easy for me to be intuitive for clients, but trusting my intuition for myself and in interpersonal relationships has been a whole other ballgame. And that training definitely, yeah, it was very profound. It was a very profound part of my journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. So you talk about the dark feminine. Can you speak to that or describe what that means?
Yeah, so obviously there's the goddess, and just like there's the god, there's the feminine, the masculine. There's also one of the ways of conceiving of the feminine and masculine is in their light and their dark polarities. And actually, Jung called it the quaternity. So, I envision like this quaternity, a square divided into four, and there's the light feminine and the dark feminine, and the light masculine and the dark masculine, and then all four together create wholeness. And the idea of separating it out, light and dark, is not so that you can just contribute to more division, but it's more about so that you can kind of get to know something in its nuance. It's like when you have an engine and you take the pieces apart so you can see how it's all connected, but then you put them back together. So the conception of the dark feminine is not so that we can just polarize and create more division. It's just to understand this aspect of the feminine, this aspect of consciousness. And then, of course, the journey is to bring all of them back into wholeness, into union. So there's light and there's dark, and dark tends to be maligned and called evil, just simply because it's dark. And if you look at a tree, you see the leaves and the branches and all that's in the light. But the dark goddess, the dark is the roots. It's down underneath in the earth. It's dark down there, but it's important. Like, you can't really have a tree without roots. So the light feminine is kind of the feminine that's been exalted and elevated by Western culture for the most part, so beautiful, sacrificing, forgiving, eternally youthful, all these beautiful light feminine qualities, which are lovely. It's kind of like the Virgin Mary is very light feminine. They're crying at the cross. And then the dark feminine is very different. The dark feminine is fierce, it's intense. It's a force to be reckoned with. The dark feminine sees into the shadows, like the owl, which is actually one of her totems, or the black panther, black jaguar, which is also one of the other totems, sees into the shadow, gets to the truth. Because we're in like a patriarchal culture has been very ego dominant. It's been about control and power, which is all at the ego. The ego is what wants to have control and power. The dark feminine has this capacity to see through the ego and shatter it. And so it's a necessarily shattering quality that she brings when she sees into the truth and sees beyond illusion. And so then you can kind of see why has the dark feminine and then patriarchal consciousness, which is ego-based, been kind of like in a battle with each other, because she sees through and destroys what's not true. And our culture predominantly has been, based on control and power and whatever. So the dark feminine is so powerful, and really there's a resurgence, obviously, of the goddess happening right now, but also of the dark feminine, and bringing her back into balance with the light feminine. We need women who are in their power, who use their voices, who are anchored in their wombs and their bodies, not floating, and in their spirit, but not fully here. And it's been this whole journey. Any person, and by the way, men have dark feminine just as women do. So it's not just a female thing. Anybody who has a lot of dark feminine has a whole journey of coming back into wholeness with that aspect of self, because this has been demonized for, thousands of years. Like, the dark feminine people were healers and witches that were burnt at the stake. I remember in grad school, I was doing a study on the witches and the killing off of the witches and the healers. A lot of those witches were midwives and herbalists.
Right.
Like, essentially, they were helping people ease pain of birth and giving herbs for healing the body. They were not people that were doing black magic and trying to kill people. They were healers. Right. And so a lot of us who have a lot of dark goddess within us have lifetimes that we've lived during those times where either we were killed or those we loved were killed. And so there's actually a lot of fear and necessarily so from previous lifetime memory of fully coming into the dark feminine because of what happened in the past. So there is this whole work to do around that, you know, to really go into these past lifetimes, whether you're doing your own journey or you're doing past life regression or through your dreams or whatever, reclaiming those parts of self. Because when we end a lifetime in trauma, the emotional energy that gets frozen, whether it's fear or rage or whatever, if it gets frozen and doesn't actually fully get processed, it almost like keeps a piece of us, a piece of our soul back in that timeline. And so going back to retrieve that, to fully feel the emotion that got stuck, you know, to go into that grief, that sadness, that anger, so that we feel it all the way through, which is shadow work, by the way. It's all about being intimate and fully, healthfully expressive of our emotions, is important, you know. And this is, I'm bringing this up simply because with the dark feminine, anyone who resonates with her, who has her strong in their chart, is going to have that as part of their healing. Just simply because this has been a demonized, repressed energy. You know, we call it all kinds of negative names. So witch, bitch, hag, whore, these are all nicknames, shadow nicknames for the dark goddess, or for the dark feminine as it expresses in women. And anybody who has her strong, you know, for me, the dark goddess is all about power. And so it's learning how to stand in our power, not give it away and play the victim, not lord it over others and play the tyrant. Either way, imbalanced power. It's about really coming into center within ourselves, knowing who we are, knowing our worth, knowing our power, standing in it fiercely, but still with an open heart, you know, so that it doesn't default into rage and aggression and I just want to control back because I'm mad because you controlled me. Like then it just,
yeah,
then the drama continues.
right.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm thinking, as you're speaking, I was thinking I'm going to ask her about like, what can we do to open up this dark feminine inside of us? And you're already like, just describing that. So thank you for reading my mind.
I mean, creative work and getting in touch with your intuition and body work and yoga. I mean, honestly, yoga was such a gateway for me spiritually because there's so much in the body. You know, the body has memory from not just this lifetime. It has past lifetime memory. And when you do yoga, it opens up the nadis. It opens up the pathways, the energy pathways. It was so profound for me to find yoga. And yeah, it was definitely a key gateway drug to spirituality, you know, if you will.
Yeah, wow. That's so cool. I want to also ask you about how can we use astrology, or how do you use it to navigate your daily life? And then my other question before I forget,
yeah,
also sort of part of that too, is if you like intuitively feel into what we're moving into energetically in this near future, of what we need to step into, or if there's anything astrologically that's showing up that we can kind of prepare for or focus on in this new, because it feels like there's a lot of new energy coming in that just happened. So, and I don't follow a lot of astrology except for some of your work, but tell us about that.
All right. So the first question is, you wanted me to know how I use astrology every day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I write a lot. So I write forecasts. I talk about what's going on this week or this month. And, you know, I do horoscopes. I also do personal readings, which obviously are more dialed in and specific for what you're going through personally. So for me, you know, I'm just aware of the cosmic weather. Like I actually remember when I first got into astrology, and I started seeing, you know, what was happening. I'm very scientific. I have a strong intellect. And so I was like, I don't know about this. So I wouldn't look at the aspects until the end of the day because I didn't want seeing them in the morning to inform my day. Because I was like, oh, maybe, huh?
Sorry, what are the aspects?
Oh, sorry. You know, like, so whatever the transits are, like if say like today, the sun squares Saturn, and that's
Okay.
known for being kind of heavy, maybe good for being disciplined and really getting things in order, but it can also be heavy, depressing, karmic, whatever. So I wouldn't look at the aspects till the end of the day, because I didn't want to like read about it and then have it actually create the reality. And I was like,
Right.
this is when I was trying to figure out, is astrology for real?
Yeah.
And I started seeing, oh my God, these energies are playing out during the day before I even know what they are. And so that kind of sold me on astrology.
Yeah.
So, I'm aware of the astrology. I write it. But the funny thing is, I write it, I channel it, whatever, and then sometimes I'll forget about it. And then I'll be like going through my day and something will be happening. I'll be like, what is going on right now? I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote about that last month.
That's so funny.
I know, it's weird.
Expert. That's so amazing.
I know. So I'm not an astrologer that runs my whole life by astrology. It's like, I don't look at, oh my gosh, I can't go to the house this day or whatever. But at the same time, I do use it as information because, astrology is about cycles. So there's beginnings and there's culminations and then there's endings. And when you are aware of these portals of time, you can work with them. Like when you start something during a period where it's naturally really good to start something, you've got this energy helping you grow. If you start something when there's actually an energy of needing to deal with the past, needing to complete the past, you set a different kind of karma into motion. And so it really helps you kind of tune in with the divine laws that govern the universe and be aware. I love astrology because for me, it's a tool for awareness. So you study your natal chart, or you get a reading with an astrologer to hear about your natal chart so that you can understand yourself more. In the chart, you can see your gifts and your highest self-expression that you're going to be seeking to embody your whole entire life. You can also see your lessons, your karmas, your childhood, your past lifetimes, and the stuff that carries over that you're still dealing with. And so you can also, by the way, study your natal chart for years and still discover new things. I've been studying my chart for 20 years. I still discover new things. Like it's a never-ending study, just like the study of the self is a never-ending study, or the study of the cosmos. We're constantly discovering new black holes, new planets, new whatever. Same thing in your chart. And so you can study your chart forever. And then the transits, which is where the planets are today for everybody and what they're activating in your chart, they're essentially telling you what's happening now, like what's going on for everybody, so that you're becoming more, collectively aware, not just isolated, focused on yourself, but also how is what's going on for everybody impacting you? Like, what is it doing in your chart? What lessons are coming forth? What opportunities, what karmas are ripening to be fulfilled or addressed or completed? Like, so being aware of your astrology to me is kind of just like understanding the cosmic weather. Is it raining out? Is it going to storm? Is it a sunny day? Like, these things inform my choices in what I'm going to wear when I go out the door, or if I'm even going to go out the door. If there's a blizzard, I'm not going anywhere. Right. And so astrologically, same thing. There's just awareness and opportunities for, self-reflection and conscious evolution, like working with what's going on consciously. I'm also really big into shadow work. And so I always look at the chart from a shadow work perspective. You can see the childhood stuff that imprinted something that you're going to be working with in your lifetime, that it affects all your relationships. And until you get to that core and feel that little one's emotions and hear that little one that didn't get heard when she or he was little, it's going to repeat, in your life. And so you can see all that in the chart. So that's kind of how I use astrology. I am aware of like timings and, I'll check things in terms of like, oh, am I going to launch something? I just actually launched a new part of my website. It's not like a brand new website, but we updated some stuff or whatever. I waited till Mercury was direct. Like, I waited till the new moon because I just knew it was going to be a lot easier than swimming upstream if we tried to do it when Mercury's still retrograde and we are in the dark of the moon. So that's, how I use it. in terms of the astrology now, there's big things happening. So, I mean, there's a lot I could talk about, but I'll just talk about two things that are really big. We have two planets. Actually, one's a planetoid. That's Chiron, the wounded healer. And then we have a planet Uranus. They're both this year moving into brand new signs. And, you know, Chiron will be in Aries for 8 years, and Uranus is moving into Taurus and will be in Taurus for 7 years. So these are long-term journeys that are significant. When they move into new signs, they're important for the collective, not just personally. But what happens this year is both of them move into new signs. Like Chiron just moved in 2 days ago, April 17th. Wait, what is today? Yesterday.
Yesterday.
1 day ago.
Wow. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like writing horoscopes for like 3 months from now, and then like April 18th, and I get confused. I'm like, where am I? What date is it? What timeline am I in? Anyhow,
Yeah.
so Chiron just moved into Aries, and then Uranus does so middle of May. It moves into Taurus. But all year, these two are going to go retrograde, and they're going to backtrack into their previous signs and then go direct, and then eventually go into Aries and Taurus respectively, and then be there for 8 years for Chiron and 7 for Taurus, or for Uranus. So they're in liminal space, these planets. They're in the 29th degree of their signs, going back and forth over the 29th degree, which is a degree that's very karmic, because it's the last degree in the sign. It's all about completion, culmination, wrapping things up, being done, you know, finishing up so you can move into a new cycle. But they're also karmic in the sense that anything unresolved in that cycle will come up to be addressed, because we need to move into a new beginning. With Uranus, it's just, you know, Uranus is moving in out of Aries, the first sign, into Taurus, the second sign. So there's something about the last 7-year cycle that can be kind of coming up to look at and address. And this is about, you know, independence, revolution, rebellion, change. You know, where have we been resisting change? Where are we not taking a stand? But also looking at our relationship to anger and the masculine, especially out of balance masculine, where it's, you know, violent, controlling, dominating, too fiery. Like, that's something to be tuning into so that we can heal our relationship with the masculine. Chiron, on the other hand, is moving from 29 Pisces to 0 Aries, the very last degree of the last sign of the entire zodiac, into the first degree of the first sign of the entire zodiac. So this is actually about a massive new cycle. Like, it's ending a 50-year cycle, 51 years, and starting a brand new one. So anything unresolved from the last 50 years can be coming up with this one. And Pisces is very much about surrender and dissolution, but also about endings and loss and grief and our emotions. And we live in a culture that does not like to feel grief and does not like to feel negative emotions. Happy one, totally fine, but sadness, pain, depression, grief, you know, it's like, oh my God, don't feel that. Have another, you know, alcoholic beverage, or pop a pill, or get into a relationship so you don't have to sit with the grief of, you know, the previous one that's ending, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot up right now. This whole year is a very transitional year. Massive endings of an old order, of an old era, of an old paradigm are possible if we are willing to see that through. Obviously, not everybody's going to choose to work with it that way, right? Some people are just going to resist and do things to deflect and deny and busy themselves so they don't actually do the deep inner work. But if you're willing to do the work, this is a pivotal year where you can really, like, complete something, some kind of karma, some kind of pattern that you've been like repeating over and over and over. And it's like you're finally waking up to the fact that you're done with this pattern, and you're ready to be done with it, and you're ready to actually take the steps to be done with it. So it is, it's interesting because there is this new energy incoming, but it's predicated on the ending of something. Like, you can't just focus on the new and ignore the past that's not resolved, that's not addressed, that's not dealt with. So it's like we're in a turnstile. I think I even used this imagery in the new moon write-up I just did. We're in a turnstile, and we're in the middle of going through the turnstile, but we're not quite through it yet.
Right.
We're in motion, and it's a very potent time right now. And that's just that. There's other astrology too.
Wow.
That's enough.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It is.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. That's huge.
It is. You know what's funny is on Tuesday, so Chiron moved into Aries on Tuesday the 17th at 1:11 a.m. I'm very into numerology. I mean, I'm not a numerologist, but I like numbers. So I thought that was powerful. But that night, so many people I know were tossing and turning, having horrible sleep, having nightmares. You know, it's like Pisces is the unconscious. It's the collective unconscious and all the imagery that comes up. You know, one of the images for the unconscious they show in like Psych 101 is the iceberg, and you see the tip of it above the water and you think that's it. But actually, if you go under the water, you see like so much more of the iceberg is down there. That's the unconscious. And Pisces, the sign, is very connected to the unconscious and what's down there. And Chiron, the wounded healer, at the last degree of Pisces, is bringing up a lot of what's down there. So, you know, dreams and imagery can be very rich right now. I know a lot of people had a bad time sleeping. And then I woke up, so Tuesday morning, I woke up at 1:08 a.m. wide awake. And I was just like, why am I awake? And then I looked at my clock and it was 1:08. And I knew Chiron was going into Aries at 1:11. So I was like, okay, I guess I was supposed to tune into this. So I was like tuning in. I wrote that on my Instagram, and several other people were like, oh my God, I woke up at 1 o'clock. I woke up at 1:10. I woke up, and I never wake up in the middle of the night. Like this series of people were like waking up. I was like, oh, well, we were all, I guess, feeling, you know, the shift. And
so cool.
Yeah, it's up. Everybody's feeling it on some level.
That is so cool. Wow. Thank you. I'm so honored to have gotten to talk with you today.
Thank you so much.
You shared so much with us. Thank you.
It was fun.
It was. I want to send people back to your site. Please check out Harmony's work. It is amazing. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you, or what would you want to send people to?
You can just go to my website, divineharmony.com, and I write a lot. I write a lot. And so I have free content. I have a membership service. We actually just implemented kind of a new membership setup, so you can check it out on my website. You know, I write weekly blogs, weekly horoscopes, monthly blogs. I'm starting monthly horoscopes. I'm actually doing solar gate calls where I do the journey through the wheel of the year with the sun, the 8 gates, like, you know, the solstices, the equinoxes, and then the cross quarter days. Mm-hmm. I'm also starting to do lunar gate calls. So lunar calls where I talk about the upcoming moon cycle. So there's just a lot of offering there. If you're interested in learning astrology, I teach in my next foundations class, where I teach in depth. The planets, the signs, houses, and aspects is starting in May. So that's on my website. And yeah, you can reach out to, I'm also on Facebook, Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll put links.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I learned so much from you today, and I know our audience has too. This was so rich.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Many blessings.